He looked up through the skylight and saw the same square of blue sky with a small wisp of white cloud that he always saw in the mornings, and had the dawning realization that rather than the weather having been consistently satisfying, he had been looking at an anamorphic image someone or something had placed for his benefit as he sat at his desk. In other words, an image which only made sense viewed from that specific angle. When he stood up, however, and took in the whole vista, the weather was suddenly rich and varied, with a much less settled outlook. Outlook, he mused. That was a particularly English word for the nature of weather in the short term. When you thought about it, though, it became an absurd personification. I mean, how could the weather have an outlook as if all those elements that combined made up the weather could be constituted in the same way in which human personality traits could be brought together to give someone their particular outlook? The image, he realized now, was attached to the side of his neighbor's new loft conversion, and that meant that he had potentially been looking at the same patch of bland blue sky every day since the beginning of lockdown. He had thought it irritating that he could now see the top of the dormer window from his Velux window. But he realized that if he sat at a certain angle, he would not see it. This in itself was irritating, though, that is to say, the fact that he would always be aware, even when he couldn't see it, that the top of the dormer window was only invisible because he was deliberately sitting at such an angle to avoid seeing it. This in itself was also irritating because deep down he had not been really bothered by this intrusion into his natural outlook or aspect on the world, namely his view of the sky. But this small irritation, by virtue of being any kind of irritation, had somehow disrupted his naturally phlegmatic way of being, like a grain of sand in a shoe that you were dying to remove. Did this mean that he would now have to remove the view? He asked himself, had his neighbor been laughing at him, or was this actually meant to be a peace offering that no one in their wildest dreams had been expected to be fooled by? A nice sunny outlook placed at the perfect angle if viewed from below the Velux window of his office.